Coming up on the Together for Good podcast, I am talking with Krista Kilgus. She is the executive director of Urban Servant Corps, which is this great gap year program that has existed in Denver for a number of years. She'll talk to us a little bit about the history, but it's also a chance for her to share about the really exciting shift that's going to be happening with the way that this program runs. It's really cool, very exciting. I'm not going to spoil it. You have to keep watching. Here we go. Welcome to the Together for Good podcast, a podcast created by Bethany Lutheran Church in Cherry Hills Village, Colorado, and hosted by me, Pastor Nate Preisinger. On Together for Good, our goal is to provide practical, engaging content that supports you without expectations. Whether you're feeling disconnected from traditional religion or simply exploring what faith means in your life, we're here to walk alongside you. No matter where you are on your journey of faith, we're glad you're here. Welcome to Together for Good. Well, welcome, Krista Kilgus from Urban Servant Corps. Thank you for taking time to be here and to chat with me. Before we even hit record, I was learning a little bit about the history of Urban Servant Corps, but I'm guessing a lot of our listeners and viewers don't know what that is. So give us as much of the story as you can, just to tell us a little bit about what this organization is that you're executive director of. Correct. Do I get the title right? Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Thanks for having me.
You bet.
It was the late 80s. That's where I'm starting.
Mm-hmm.
So 1987 is the founding year of Urban Servant Corps. Around that time in the Denver community, a lot of nonprofit organizations were being established, direct service, providing support services for people experiencing homelessness, food, just all kinds of those direct service needs for vulnerable folks in our community. And one of the needs of the community at that time, as nonprofits were getting started, was staffing. And so our founders, Nelson and Benita Bach, are two Lutheran pastors. They had come with an experience from an intentional living community in the Mennonite world.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And thought the Lutherans needed to do that too. And so established Urban Servant Corps really in the midst of the downtown community. We're about 10 blocks from the Capitol, and purchased an old mansion that has 10 bedrooms and 5 bathrooms and lots of other communal space that became the living community for Urban Servant Corps.
And that's how it's really functioned since 1987, has been this service year type of experience, often for people done with college, come and do a year of service, live in intentional community. What else would they do while living in the mansion?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, those early years were a little different than the model has been. The Nelson and Benita and their 2 young children at the time, as a family, lived in that community house.
Cool.
And so at that point, there were invitations to international students who were doing church work or studying abroad who were invited to live in that community. And so the early years were families and international folks doing community work at nonprofit organizations.
Yeah.
And so then it did evolve eventually into kind of a more year-long patterned post-grad opportunity. And that was about 10 years into the history of Urban Servant Corps when that shift started happening.
And that is how you kind of got involved, correct?
Right.
Is that you first started just as someone doing a service year post-college?
Yep. Yeah, so I came to know and love Urban Servant Corps by participating in it myself. I graduated from Wartburg College in Waverly, Iowa, and moved to Denver right after graduation as kind of a discernment year and figuring out what a next step might be.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I spent a semester here in Denver and really enjoyed my time and wanted to come back, and this was the place to do it, knowing that I would find community and like-minded people to participate in this experience, but then also be of service to this community.
Yeah, well, and let's to give the listeners a little more idea of what this program looked like.
Yeah.
What was your year like? Like, what were you doing? How many people were living in the house? Any of those details would be super interesting.
Sure, yeah. The year that I participated, there were 3 houses of young adult volunteers.
Okay.
The house that I lived in had 6. There was a house of 8 and also a house of 10. And so every person who lived in the midst of this intentional community then were placed at a nonprofit organization in town. Mm-hmm. So again, organizations doing direct service to vulnerable populations. And so the role that I was in was at Denver Urban Ministries, just right on Colfax Avenue.
Yeah.
It has since now closed, but was a place for people to receive food assistance, job assistance, preparing resumes. My role there was to run their urban education program. And so we would invite folks from from the Denver community and beyond to come learn about urban life
Yeah.
and issues of poverty and just understand that a little bit more, while also doing some service projects and volunteer work as well.
Yeah. And how many people were in the house? How many others were doing this?
In my house, we were 6. There, community sizes varied between
Absolutely.
6 and 10,
Year to year, it's always kind of all over the place.
Yep.
But I understand that too is such a key, right? Like just getting the big picture of what these years do for young adults, right? Like giving you a chance to be in a real intentional ministry setting that's doing very hands-on work, but then at the same time having housemates who are also doing that same type of work. Yeah. And so you've got people to kind of process this together. You're not just the weird friend working at that ministry setting. Yeah. You all are working there.
Right.
But then in addition to like living in community presents its own level of problems and intentionality and self-worth.
And delight.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, absolutely. I shouldn't take that away. It's like, it's very, very fun and very intense.
Yeah.
And that's probably why it's usually only a year long.
Right. You might be onto something there. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was one of the greatest gifts of my experience, was that intentional community piece. It was not always easy, for sure. And I think just the opportunity to come together, again, with people with shared value systems who are connected and putting their faith into action in these settings, and then to process our days over a shared meal together. A lot of life skills just around
Absolutely.
Like cooking and grocery shopping, but then also just a really deep sense of belonging
and
a place to come home to know that people would be available to listen to those tough stories or otherwise just have a goofy, silly night of hanging out and relaxing.
I mean, it strikes me as incredibly valuable. I love these types of service year programs because I think it is so much of what a young adult needs, especially if they're coming right out of college.
Sure.
I tell a lot of our young adults here, it's just like you're not ready for this. You're going to do great, and college prepared you wonderfully. Yeah. But you've been in the same room or the same village, like with people your own age forever. And adulthood is just this huge shift. And so these service years are these like really interesting kind of like soft launches into adulthood, I think, in a lot of ways, where you have to learn all these skills of budgeting and grocery shopping and cooking and working and living with people. Going to a real job where it's not just people, your job isn't just to learn all day, or you're not just around folks who are exactly like, very, very similar to you, I should say, which is often the college experience.
Sure.
But as we know, these service year programs feel like they've really had a peak and that people aren't as interested in them anymore. Yeah. Any idea as to why that might be?
Yeah, we've heard some things, and I'm sure there are some things that we don't know too. But a few things that we have heard just as talking with young adults and on the recruitment trail, student loan debt is really astronomical. And so I think just the thought of coming to do a service year without an income and be a volunteer as a full-time person, it feels pretty daunting then to have how many ever gajillion dollars of student loan debt around. So that's been a big one. I think there are a lot of experiential learning opportunities in high school and college, different from 20 years ago, that they existed but maybe weren't as prevalent. And so I think a lot of folks are engaging in experiential learning opportunities through high school and college and other avenues. And when college graduation rolls around, they're ready to just do something different. And so that has been a piece. There's we often get questions around, like, what does this faith-based piece mean? Urban Servant Corps is a Lutheran-affiliated organization with the ELCA. We're a Reconciling in Christ organization as well. But a lot of folks are like, what exactly does that mean? Like, how faith-based are you as a faith-based?
What does it mean? I'd be kind of curious what that has historically looked like. There are faithful things that we do. We organize a monthly worship service. Our volunteers offer a faith reflection of their own, kind of leading their cohort through their own. But really, what it looks like on a broader scale is just this commitment to having faithful conversations, to say that where our faith intersects with social justice and how we are to live and be in the world. And what, our tagline of God's work, our hands, like, what does that mean to be, to live and be and work among folks that are vulnerable and who are a part of our community? And so that
that there has never been a requirement to be Lutheran to participate in Urban Servant Corps, but we are grounded in that tradition.
Sure.
And in those faith practices. So there are opportunities for theological discussions and those big picture wonderings. And it really is about that faith exploration and an individual's journey of faith in the midst of community.
Yeah.
And so to have folks to surround you, to support that and wonder with you, and also to kind of be on the path that you
Which again sounds like exactly what a young person could benefit most from.
Sure.
Is that it's not a program that you have to get with. It is intentionally creating space for these types of conversations to happen. Mm-hmm. And so that the individuals can grow in faith, whatever that might mean for them, through this whole process in community.
Right.
Yeah, I really like that vision. Going back to my original question, we're getting threaded. Sorry, that was on me. But with that, right, like we're talking about why I hear, the faith component can be a hard sell in this day and age for some people, and they see that and immediately disqualify themselves. Yeah. I joke about that all the time when we're trying to hire positions for the church too. It's like, no, like people see that it's at a church and they're automatically out. Yeah. And I'm sure some folks felt the same way. So any other details or pieces you think that have hindered involvement in these types of programs?
I mean, I think that is largely what we have heard from folks.
From the folks,
I think there are some just external pressures whether they come from parents or society or I don't know what, just about to be a certain way and to make it on your own and to have a job and that this is the course. And I think Urban Servant Corps for all of these years has been a really countercultural experience and a countercultural opportunity to live in community, which is not the norm. You know, the norm is like independence and make it on your own, but also to offer yourself in service to one another. And I think that is also just a shift that we've seen in terms of people, and I understand it, I get it. People want to be paid for their skill set and compensated for the good work they do, and there certainly is value in that. And this experience, there's a lot of other benefit that comes from the experience external from money, like outside of having a paycheck.
And I'm asking this question because part of the reason that I wanted to bring you on the podcast is you have a really exciting new story to tell as it relates to Urban Servant Corps, because you've been wrestling with these realities of, enrollment and interest in a service year seems to be kind of shifting culturally speaking. Yep. So please tell us about,
Drum roll.
what's happening, and I'll have lots of questions about how this came about.
Yeah, so we certainly the pandemic offered a significant shift.
Sure, that too.
That
needs to be mentioned.
Probably a good one to mention. We started to see some of our application numbers shift a tiny bit pre-pandemic, but really during that time, our large recruiting efforts were on college campuses, and so the first year there were no students on college campuses, and the next year visitors weren't welcomed to be visitors on college campuses.
Gosh! Oh yeah.
And then. So there was just this period of time that recruitment was really tricky. So that is a good mention as well. So just noticing these trends and these shifts, the impact that it had on Urban Servant Corps, the amount of effort that we were putting into recruitment efforts, and the business term of like return on investment, but the number of folks that were then coming to us, it ended up to a point that it wasn't going to be sustainable for Urban Servant Corps as an organization, nor was it impactful in the community as the way that we knew we could be. And so the nonprofit organizations that receive a full-time volunteer for a number of years just really relied on us to help that support system and that staffing, and we just weren't able to provide that consistently.
And just to pause on that real quick too, I think that needs to be mentioned as like a real benefit of the ministry that Urban Servant Corps was doing, is providing some of these organizations with talented labor at a very reduced cost.
Right.
Like that's part of the ministry and the design of these service year programs is it really is incredibly supportive of the external organizations as well.
Exactly right. Yeah. And so that benefit was we weren't able to provide that to our community. And so we certainly took a good look at our own ministry and our own model to say what's happening here. And as we were in conversation with a number of other programs similar to this, recognize that they also were experiencing some of these trends.
Okay, yeah.
It wasn't just us. We were in unfortunate good company is kind of what we're saying. So Yeah, so we really took to this time of discernment and to understand a little bit more about who we are and the needs of the community and the shifts that are happening among us and how we can be sustainable and still offer the gift of Urban Servant Corps, that the sense of belonging and the professional development and the conflict management and the life skills and all of those pieces that were the goodness of the Urban Servant Corps experience. As young adults departed and said, wow, I had a really transformational experience. Those were the things that were happening during this year. And so really, I really named and claimed those pieces of our identity and who we have always been, no matter what the iteration, whether it was families and international students moving into this young adult community, and then matching that with what the needs of the community were.
Right.
And so as we wondered about who else might benefit from what we have to offer, we cast this big wide net, had dozens of conversations in the community about what would be a good match, where there are gifts and skills and the goodness of Urban Servant Corps matches with the need in the community.
Yeah.
So we spoke with organizations and leaders in the immigration world, in the LGBTQ world, in the advocacy world. We're about 10 blocks from the Capitol. And so
Right.
older adults, other young adult programs, colleges and universities just really went open to really discern who else would be a good fit. And the conversation that continued to surprise us tremendously, but also had the traction and momentum that we were looking for, were these conversations with our Lutheran partners at New Beginnings, which is a worshiping community inside the Denver Women's Correctional Facility. And we also have longstanding partners with the Women's Bean Project and the Empowerment Program, which were organizations where we had historically placed young adult Urban Servant Corps volunteers.
Yeah.
So as those conversations continued to evolve and unfold, the need of the community of formerly incarcerated women coming out and re-entering into a community has been challenging, and the resources have been limited.
Yeah.
And so I often said this year that the Holy Spirit is just doing this really fiery dance, and we are working to step along with what that is.
Yeah.
And this was one of that. This was that.
So I'm fascinated by this too, because this is a very different undertaking than what it has been, at least in the most recent history.
Right.
And tell me more about the connections that you are seeing. What was the Holy Spirit doing that helped you connect the dots in these places? Because I don't think this is where people would originally, if I had asked you a year ago, what you could have envisioned.
Yeah, really not on a radar. And so I think that it was the ease of conversation too. In some of these other conversations, there were times where I was like, wow, that's a great idea. Here we go.
Yeah.
And we would pursue that further. And it was like, well, we had a hard time connecting with a person or finding the right organization to have that conversation with. Or part of our process is really the collaborative effort of involving potential participants.
Yeah.
And so as we explored a lot of these different avenues to identify who would be the participant, and some of those conversations we couldn't find someone to even wonder with about to be a potential participant. And so I think the clearness and the fieriness of the Holy Spirit was just this. It was like there's these little breadcrumbs being left for us. Here's the next person to talk to, and they're connected to this person, and people were responding and coming back and saying yes, this is a need in the community.
Doors were opening. Yeah.
Doors were opening, and that momentum just was confusing at first and surprising, but also really inspiring.
Yeah.
And really wow, what would this be? So you're right. It on the level of young adult participant, moving to a model of including formerly incarcerated women as this community is this wow, that seems pretty different. And when we unpack what it is that we do, the pieces of intentionality and building community and offering support for vocational discernment, and faith formation and exploration of identity, all of that is who we have been since 1987.
Right.
And those are needs of the community that we intend to now invite to be part of this Urban Servant Corps. It's
really cool, and it's a very exciting vision, because you can, just thinking about it and seeing that type of reentry from prison to outside is substantial. And there's so much written about just like how difficult that can be. And to have a very intentional place that's grounded in community and this type of authenticity and that has this spiritual underpinning to it with connection. I mean, so tell us more. I mean, I'm really excited about it. I just think it's absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Tell us more about what you think this will, what this will look like in practice.
Great question.
You might still be, yeah, okay, totally fair, totally fair.
Yeah, I think that is this next part is to co-create what this will be for the people who will participate. And so we have this. It will be a pilot year, so we are learning a lot right now, and really trying to engage with folks who are on the inside council at New Beginnings, as well as folks that are recently out, and to really hear the stories of those folks and to understand the challenges that they either anticipate or are experiencing, and to address those through what the program will look like. And so I think, again, to be rooted in who we are in terms of what the programmatic pieces around weekly gathering, quarterly retreats, and monthly community days where we engage in the community a different way. Some of those things programmatically that will remain true, and the way that we are supporting folks will shift based on what we hear from what they have to say. And so, again, that balance of claiming who we are and continuing to be those things and create the kind of nitty-gritty and the structural programmatic details in a way that meet the needs of this new community.
When do you anticipate this launching?
Yeah, so this fall, we anticipate inviting just a small number of folks. The rest of the spring and summer is this program development.
Absolutely.
And pathway modeling, we're working with a facilitator and guide to help us through that work.
Smart.
It has been great to have an outside voice to guide and to just help us focus in on who we are and who we want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. How could individuals or congregations support this? Like what would be most helpful at the moment?
Yeah. Well, as a nonprofit and a ministry, certainly financial resources and funding are always welcomed. And so I think that we have, again, some work to do around the programmatic structure, but any funds and generosity that would come our way would work to support this pilot effort and to welcome this new community. So certainly that is a way. I truly think that more of that will come, more like opportunities to plug in terms of how to engage with this community and be supportive will come as we develop it. A lot of people have come to offer different resources and connections and different people. So I think at this very stage, any more of those resources and connections and networking will be helpful.
Great.
As we cast a really wide net and how we might support these folks. I think the other piece that is always on my radar is we have this great house that I mentioned at the beginning, and it was built at the turn of the not most recent century. And
yes.
So there are always house projects for us to be working on just in terms of upkeep of that space. And we really want to be intentional about welcoming folks into a place that feels like home.
Yeah.
And that feels free and relaxing and a place for restoration and healing. And so that will be part of this next spring and summer piece too, is just really working on the house to create space. So if people have buckets of paint and hammers and nails, and they're
well, no, I think that's great. I think I think that's a very practical thing for a lot of folks that they would love to try and support and that they can be a part of on that front.
Yep.
As you reflect on this whole last year and this crazy journey of it all too, what would you say, like what are your learnings about the character of God and the way that faith works just based on the experience that you had through all of this?
Yeah. I have also said that it is so good that we believe so deeply in community. And I think that has really been where God has shown up in the midst of this process, is that there have been some hard conversations. There have been some really grief-ridden conversations. Like it's was sad and frustrating and a lot of other things when we had to really,
make a big shift.
And decide that we were going to move into this radical restart.
Absolutely.
But even in those times, it never felt like we were alone. It always felt like we had companions, faithful companions on the journey with us. And so I think I knew that I had a powerful experience during my year at Urban Servant Corps around community. And that continues to just deepen. Yeah. And so it's not necessarily maybe a new learning, but just like a bigger experience of how God calls us into community to support one another and to be with one another and to really be open.
Yeah.
I mean, gosh, again, a year ago, I think our board of directors, staff, none of this would have been the idea
on the radar. No.
Thought. And
right.
So I think just the learning of openness and being willing to dance along.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. I love too, just in the way you're describing, like the whole process was Urban Servant Corps really looking at who they are and who God had historically called them to be, who God had called this organization to be, that type of discernment work. Yeah. And it was in the process of going over these details that I'm sure you, especially as executive director, knew backwards and forwards and had said and pitched in 1,000 different locations. Sure. And even in as closely as you understood what the mission of this organization was and what God had been trying to do in this organization, you are still surprised by where it ended up.
1,000%.
And that's so great. Like there's something so freeing and exciting about that too. It's like, even as well as you think that things are going, God can still surprise you with how that gets lived out. Yeah. Like I think about, when Jesus calls the disciples and calls their fishermen, and he says, I will make you fishers of people. And it's just that like subtle shift. Like they had always thought about themselves as a fisherman. And Jesus isn't really saying like, no, you have to forget all that and leave it all behind. It's just like, no, like we're going to tweak it a little bit. Yeah. And that's exactly like how I'm hearing this story is It's just another example of that type of like vocational call and this like shift through it, which is really cool. Yeah. Really cool.
Yeah. It's been fascinating to be a part of and also to kind of watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any last little pieces of information? We'll be sure to put the link to the website below because that's where they can donate as well. Yeah, all of that. But anything else that you want our listeners to know before we sign off?
Just that we're really grateful for this community that has journeyed with us. I think it just speaks to the longevity of Urban Servant Corps in the community and in the world of the Lutheran Church as well.
Yeah.
This Rocky Mountain Synod. And so we have just felt people's support in lots of different ways, whether that's just a quick comment or a phone call or just whatever it might be. We just have really felt that community. And so we're really grateful to have people continue to be on that journey with us. There are a lot of unanswered questions for us right now in terms of what all this will exactly look like. But just to know that your prayers and encouragement are very welcomed but also received and really felt. So
thanks for that. No, Krista, thanks for all of your faithfulness in leading this organization for the last 17 years and through some really difficult, I'm sure frustrating times. Yeah. But just really excited where you and the board have ended up with all this and what's possible in the future. Thank you for that. And you listeners, thank you for watching. Share this story with the people who need to hear it. This is so exciting, happening right in our backyard. And as always, stay in peace, everyone. Thank you for listening to the Together for Good podcast. If you'd like more resources for your walk of faith, please visit our website, bethany-denver.org, or download our mobile app by searching Bethany Connect in your phone's app store.